The endless circle. This is the bane, I am sure, of horses' lives all over the world. And it's actually one of the reasons I began Strides for Success and Daily Strides podcast and Daily Strides Premium. It was to help end the endless circle. And do you know there is a place where the endless circle reigns supreme for things to do with your horse? And that is when working in a small arena. Hey there, it's Lorna here and welcome to the Daily Strides podcast. I'm an equestrian trainer and coach and I work with riders from all over the world, helping them to get the most out of their training sessions with their horse, especially when they're working alone without a trainer or a coach. And what I'm doing in this week's episode of the Daily Strides podcast is a little bit different. I'm actually taking the Monday episode from a week of episodes from Daily Strides Premium, and Daily Strides Premium, of course, is a paid subscription. Okay, so I'm taking the Monday episode, the first episode of a week of 5 lessons, and I want to publish it here for you. And in this particular week of episodes, the whole goal is different exercises that you can ride in a smaller arena or a smaller space that will help you and your horse move forward. I do hope you enjoy this, and if you do, remember the other 4 episodes are available inside of Daily Strides Premium. I'll give you all the details on that at the end of the episode. So let's dive in to riding good work, not just an endless circle, with you and your horse in a smaller space. I hope you enjoy. Bye. Smaller spaces can be one of those things that a lot of riders see as being a setback or a disadvantage when they're training their horses. But I want to, in these week of lessons, basically explore the possibility that maybe it might actually be an advantage and how you can make it that. Hi there, it's Lorna here and welcome to Daily Strides Premium. This is the audio horse riding lessons that you can listen to, and in this case hopefully get you thinking a little bit differently about riding in smaller spaces and what you can actually do while you make use of smaller spaces. Now, I want this to be very much an active week of lessons, meaning that you're actually on your horse riding. But this first episode, I just wanted to maybe do a little bit of exploring into the world of smaller spaces and how we look at them, and maybe trying to shift that a little bit before we actually get working with our horses. Now, if you are blessed to have a large riding area, first of all, well, that's fantastic. That really and truly is. But what I would love maybe for you to do is to actually begin to restrict that area a little bit, okay? Just as a little experiment, and see how it's going to benefit you and your horse. Because I can tell you now, when the parameters are when they're adjusted, so as we've less wiggle room, we tend to get a lot tighter with our focus and our accuracy. And I find that is really important. And in fact, there's so many trainers and riders that I know of here in Ireland who I know personally, who have less than ideal situations or riding areas that they work on or work in on a day-to-day basis. But they make the most out of them, and what actually ends up happening then, so they'll often box the horses or they'll ride somewhere else to go work in maybe a bigger facility or a more open space or whatever the case is. And then they can really put that to good use because they've done a lot of the, I say groundwork, but it's not groundwork. This is specifically riding I want to speak about. But they've done a lot of the foundational work, let's say, in the smaller space. So they really then get the benefit out of being in the bigger space, and they also approach it with a much more focused attitude. They know exactly what they're looking for, they know exactly what they want, and then they go ahead and make that happen, okay? So riding in a smaller space, or only having a smaller space to ride in, is not a bad thing, okay? Sure, it can be a bit limiting, and sure, you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's all well and good when you can't canter 10 strides down the arena before you hit a wall. But really important that you begin to look at this slightly differently, okay? I find that when we have a smaller space to ride in, we end up having to become a lot more focused on, first of all, our accuracy. And this is why I'm going to kind of stress to you maybe the importance of setting up a couple of markers around your smaller space. So a lot of the time we think that because we're working in such a small space, and this could be maybe a 20 by 20 meter arena, or it could be a 20 by 40 meter arena. It could even be maybe you've only got a chute or some sort of an undercovered area that's more like a channel or a tunnel to work in during the winter months, depending on when you're listening to this. But whatever it is, I want you to start setting up markers, because markers help to keep you basically on track, and it helps to really, I suppose, work with that accuracy, okay? Because very often, well, we can tell ourselves porkies. We can say things are going one way and, well, they're not going that way at all, okay? And we allow for this, as I said, this wiggle room, okay? We say, it was only half a stride. What's half a stride? Well, what's half a stride when you're coming to a 1.40 metre fence? A half a stride is a whole lot, okay? So really important that we get this accuracy in place, okay? Now, the other thing I'm going to suggest you do, and by the way, these markers don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be fancy dancy things at all. They could be something as simple as even just wrapping a ribbon around a pole. Obviously, now safety first here. We don't want the ribbon blowing in the wind and frightening the heart out of your horse, okay? But it could be just wrapping ribbons around. It could be, if you have maybe dressage markers, actually putting them up in your arena. Very often we think, but I've only got such a small space, it's not worth putting it up. Oh, but it is, okay? Put them up. The other thing I'm going to suggest you do is actually assess the space before you begin. So very often when we have a small space to ride in, they don't use all the space. So for example, case in point is if they have, let's say, a 20 by 20 meter arena, or a space, a cordoned off area to work in. I'm saying arena, it may not be maybe what other people would consider an arena, but it's an arena. It's a cordoned off area to work in. There will be a circle worn that's about like a foot deeper than the rest of the arena all the way around. So you have this like basically 20 meter circle that travels around the arena because that's all they've ever done. And it's such a waste of space. So what I want you to do is have a look before you start assessing the area and seeing what you can do to actually make the most of that space. And one of the areas that we often think is completely irrelevant when we're riding in a smaller space is the corners, but they can actually be a great learning space for you and your horse, and we're going to touch on that over these episodes this coming week, and also then the next week of episodes, the following on week of episodes as well, okay? But I really think just if it means that you have to go out and rake, if it means that you have to maybe get a shovel and do a little bit of digging, get out there, knock yourself out, okay? But start to really clear the weeds out of the corners, level the land off around if you've been riding a single track all the time. No. We're going to jump out of that track now, okay? We're going to get out of there. But really and truly do that. The other thing is I would strongly suggest trying to find a flat area of land. So I do know that one of the issues with space, and this actually was my situation when we were growing up, myself and my sister, and we had our ponies. The situation with space was that we didn't have an arena, and our dad was definitely not going to waste time, effort, money, and good land on building us an arena. So we used to ride in our paddocks, and now, where I'm from in Ireland would be known as a fairly flat area of land. But as you know, even when land that's fairly flat, is it ever actually truly flat? No, there's little kind of gradients and there's little, there's ups and downs and things like that. But I would stress having as flat a piece of land as possible, okay? What happens when we don't have a flat land, and not having a flat land can also work to your advantage, but you have to be very much aware of whatever gradient's on the land and then using that to your advantage. And I find that it can become almost a little bit one-dimensional in what you can do with it. So a flat area of land really and truly is going to be, it's going to be most beneficial for you and your horse while you work in this smaller space. So let's take it back to you have a big arena, okay? So let's say your arena is fairly big and you're blessed with this big area that you can ride in. I'm going to suggest putting up, even if it is just a few poles, you can use jump wings or jump uprights and a couple of poles. You don't even need the wings. You can just mark it on the ground if you want. But I'm going to suggest maybe pushing your comfort zone a little by becoming a little bit more uncomfortable about riding in a smaller area. If you don't have an area already demarcated out, and let's say you're riding in open fields like myself and my sister used to do, I'm going to suggest putting up maybe some tape. You get I'm saying tape now, but the white equine fencing, the horse electric fencing tape that you can get. It's really cheap for the 40mm tape, and your horse is going to be able to see that really clearly. But it helps keep you accountable as well, because as I said, sometimes, and particularly when you're riding in an open space, I know it's tempting to kind of colour outside the lines. Okay, I know this firsthand. This was my experience. So just having that kind of those parameters there is going to help you an awful lot to remain focused as well. The final thing is, before we get started now, obviously all the episodes that are going to continue on in this week's training are all actual riding exercises. I feel that when you have a smaller space to ride in, it is important to actually have a plan before you go in there, okay? Because otherwise you're going to maybe get a little disheartened, first of all, and you're going to get a little stuck, okay? And that stuck, even though it may initially be a mental stuck, it will turn into a physical stuck, okay? Because how you are thinking about it is how you're going to ride it, and that is going to transfer across to your horse, okay? And how it transfers across, well, we could discuss that till the cows come home, but just trust me, it is going to, okay? So what I'm going to suggest you do is have a really clear plan about each time you get into your smaller space, about what you want to work on, what your focus is, what your intention's going to be, and then also the actual exercise itself. And as I said, I've got 4 of them laid out here, 4 really simple exercises that you can adjust, you can have variations of, and that you can then begin to, I suppose, make work for you, and making your smaller space work for you and your horse. And this is for, as I said, now, even though maybe this time of year is the time of year where things are getting more expansive, aren't they? We're getting out of the smaller spaces a little bit. But whether I would then say challenge yourself to this, or if maybe you're listening to this a little bit later or at a different time, and the weather or the climate is proving a little bit challenging for you, that you can actually keep moving forward with your work and with your ride, and you can actually start to be grateful for the riding space you have, even if it's not ideal in your mind right now, and that you and your horse can actually start to make progress. That is my goal for this week of lessons. So you ready? Right, let's go. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. So there you have it. If you would like to get the rest of the episodes in this week of lessons all about riding in a smaller space, you can pop on over to stridesforsuccess.com/DSP. There will be a link there in the show notes of this episode, wherever you are listening to it. You can find the link there, and all the details are there about Daily Strides Premium. And you can join us, and let's start making the most of your riding with your horse today. Okay, I will chat to you soon. Be good. Bye.